last week on the Nicoletti Show. Let's welcome him to the show. Jared, brother, we did it, man.
I'm here, bro. And yeah, after seeing all these names on your intro, I was like, man, you are bringing on rock stars. All right, let's run it.
How do you qualify what is good for a hard money deal?
For me personally, I only like stuff that's like extremely straightforward. I don't like to stack risks. So risks would be things like it's frame construction, there's commercial nearby, the comps are old, well or septic, not lot and block legal description. So if it's very, very straightforward, cosmetic renovation, don't need to pull permits necessarily, right? Then I'm like, all right, I would offer on that.
You're doing a really good job of you have boxes that need to be checked. And I think that's extremely important in any business model. How are you helping others get educated on the side of numbers? Because it really boils down to the numbers at the end of the day with these deals.
I send out an intro email. One of the things I include is a flipping calculator that I built, fully dummy proofed walkthrough video. I'm like, hey, when you look at these deals, I want you to underwrite it first. I'm giving you kind of the inside scoop on about what stuff costs, and then send it to me before you make an offer. And I'll be able to verify like, no, you're way off on your reno, or here's what you're missing on your ARV. And then when people take the time to do that, they really crush it.
I love it because it's not just like the deals that you're doing, it's your business model as well. Like that is so key to dial in on. Like I'll do the intro calls, I'll give you our checklist, I'll walk you through it. You find these things, you qualify it. If it fits the boxes, you come back and let's take a look at it.
You're not ready to do a deal until you can tell it's a deal in under 5 minutes for sure, ideally less than 2 minutes.
Boom. Love it. Thanks again, man. This has been great.
Let's go. See you soon. Thank you very much, Al.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. Welcome to the Nicoletti Show. We are live Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. If you missed any of the episode last week, rewind, check it out. There's always value in these episodes. You don't want to miss them. Scan the QR code at the top of the screen. You'll find all of our social media content for everything from YouTube, Instagram, iTunes, Spotify. And, sometimes you're listening in the car. You'll find all of our content everywhere, either visual, audio, it's everywhere. And you can, of course, find all the content on probates, quiet titles, partitions, all the messy stuff. You don't want to forget and miss about all the probate stuff that's out there because the probate market is killing it right now. So go check that out. And we are going to have an awesome episode with my guy from the Southwest Florida REIA, Jeff Tumbarello. Jeff and his crew down in Southwest Florida love their meetups. It's jam-packed every time. He's always bringing in great speakers. And Jeff's an investor himself, and he's doing fix and flips, and he's not just in Florida, he's in Georgia, he's in different states, and I think what brings the kind of value that Jeff brings as a guest is just the knowledge and experience he's had, not just on the investing side, but also on the networking side and the REIA side, and there's a power to that, and I've really wanted to have Jeff on for a while. I've spoken at 2 of his events, and ready for another one. It's always an exciting thing, so I'm ready to do this. I got my pen, and like I tell everybody on the episodes, take notes, take lots of notes, get a notepad, write stuff down, ask questions, engage. That's why I love having you all watch, because I want to help you all and engage you all so you can learn from these people that come on the show. So I'm ready, and let's rock this thing. Hey everybody, my name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate and bring in the best in the game, no matter what market they're in. They can be in the Florida market, another state. They can be doing fix and flips. They can be doing long-term holds. They can be doing wholesaling. They can be doing land deals. It doesn't matter where it is, real estate or real estate adjacent. Maybe it's marketing, branding, or a commercial. We want to bring in the best in the game on how you can take your company to the next level. On my show tonight, I have my guy from the Southwest Florida REIA, a fix and flipper, an investor, a guy that's been in this game a while, and he's seeing it all over the market. market, Jeff Tumbarello. Jeff is running a meetup down in the Southwest Florida REIA. So for those of you that are down there, you got to go check it out. It's always jam-packed. And every time I see Jeff, he's full of energy. He's ready to do deals. He's ready to pour into the community. And I wanted to have Jeff on for a while, and I finally got him. So without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. Jeff, my guy, welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show.
How you doing, Al?
Man, I'm excited to see you because I know every time I see you, it's going to be a great conversation. So I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm good.
Good. Well, Jeff, I've wanted you on for a while because I know that you got a story about how you got into this, what journey that was for you. Walk people through how you got to this point of where you are today and what that journey looked like.
How I started is fascinating. I was in the mortgage business, and I was watching one of the guys I founded the Southwest Florida REIA with, Peter Collar. We were doing his mortgages, and I was looking at his side of the HUD. I was doing the mortgages for his flips when he exited, and I was looking at his side of the HUD and looking at how much he made versus our little mortgage brokerage fee that we got beat up on, and realized I wanted to be him. You can still do the other one. You don't have to quit doing one, do the other. Funny story, there was a group coming from Miami to Fort Myers, and this was back in the late 90s, where we all just lived off the HUD list. Everybody got their deals from the HUD list. Once in a while, you would get one from a member of the public, or a realtor would bring you, but probably 80% of the deal flow was the HUD list. And there was a group coming from Miami that Peter said was extremely sophisticated, funded, a big group. And he goes, they're going to take this place over. So he actually was bidding on the entire HUD list and tying it up. He would tie it up. He even let some go, lost the deposits. Well, he had like 10 tied up, and we're having lunch, and I'm looking at what he had tied up. So I grabbed the 5 best ones, got hard money, bought the 5 in one day. I took the easiest rehab, flipped it, and then went through those 5 and said, wow, this is great. I want to do this, and just kept going. And that's really how I got started in the business. At some point, we became, my wife got her license because it was just easier for us to get the information. It wasn't even as much about the commissions. It was easier to get our deals done. And then at some point, when the market blew up in 2008, we had already formed the REIA. The company Steelbridge Realty, we both came on. It was a brokerage arm of a private equity firm that we were buying a lot of the bad debt in town. And then when that dried up, we bought the guy who started it, who was our partner at the time, out of it. And that's kind of where we are today. But we really, a bunch of us got our start in real estate investing to keep a group out of the market that eventually came anyways.
Yeah.
It really didn't matter that we tied up the whole HUD list. But yeah, I talk about, I bought 5 in one day. And when I think about how little I knew about rehabs back then, it's shocking that I'm still standing here.
And you've seen both markets. You saw 2008. I mean, you saw 2020. I mean, so you've seen the ups and the downs. For anybody that is either just starting or maybe hasn't seen things like 2008, what's some of the best advice you'd give them if there's like a down market that's on the way or potentially could be coming? How do you navigate through those waters?
Don't focus on narratives. Everybody has the narrative. It's a boom. It's a crash. Statistically and data-wise, I focus on the rate of change. There's a point of which, like in 2007, that the market was in such a free fall here that it wasn't flippable. You could not buy something because 6 months later, it was probably worth 20-25% less. So unless you got it for like 15% of the ARV and then add your rehab holding cost in, you couldn't make money. So you really, focus on the rate of change. And more importantly, focus on there is always a bubble of money in every market. Every market has a bubble of money. Somewhere is growing. Find it, get in it, work it. That's how you're going to not only survive, you're going to succeed. Really thrive. If somebody is always making money. I know a realtor that sold pre-construction houses in 2005. He then sold bank REOs from like 8 to 12. And then from 12 forward, just did normal real estate. And then about 2020 became the new construction guy again. And he's just consistently pivoted into different markets, and he's a smart guy. He's always made money.
Yeah. And Jeff, you're in the Southwest Florida area, so you know as better than anybody what that market's been like in terms of the rising insurance and sometimes the market gets pretty cold in the Cape Coral market area. You know, how do you navigate through some of those markets where it's like the insurance is an issue or the buyers aren't really buying in that area because of just of demand?
Well, it's easy to figure out a lot of that. Flood zones, that's flood insurance or not. Year built, if you've noticed, the longer we went in Florida, the houses get higher and higher. So there's specific years that you really don't want to go below that if it's in a flood zone, unless you're just planning on selling to somebody's cash who doesn't, carry flood insurance. I'm one of them people. I think it's a 3-3 with a pool and a guest house on the water in North Fort Myers, and I don't carry flood insurance. I self-insure. Usually it turns out great for Ian. I had to write a couple checks. I actually broke even, and more importantly, when I had to rehab it, I didn't have to rehab it with the input of an insurance company. So I was done and living in my house when everybody else was trying to get their first check. But, the key to that scenario is you got to first have the money, and second, don't spend the money because you may need the money. But yeah, when it comes to that kind of stuff, it's really simple. You figure out where the pain points are and either avoid them or buy them so well that it doesn't matter what happens. There's a buyer for every property at the right price.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway. It's a matter of the price. What are you going to buy it at? So it still makes a lot of sense to get in that kind of deal. And Jeff, before we get into the real meat of the podcast, one thing that is been pretty big for me for the show is when I first started doing the podcast, one of the 4 elements of starting the podcast was to bring on community leaders and REIA leaders to talk about best practices, talk about their community, because community is a big part of what we do as professionals. So first of all, what led you to be or run or be a part of the Southwest Florida REIA? And what have you seen on a community standpoint that's been so beneficial about being a part of a group like that?
We were initially driving over to the Dade and Broward clubs just to go. It was fun. You're a room full of people with the same goals, the same ambitions as you. We know Bob Hunter really well. He founded the Dade REIA. He's kind of the OG of all those clubs over there. And we had Bob come over and speak at our first meeting. But it's just cool a couple of times a month to get I call it locked in a room with a bunch of people that want to do the same thing you do. I learn a lot. Everybody thinks I'm, that I've got all this knowledge. I get so much out of the REIA, people calling me, asking me questions, because we all approach everything from our own lens, our own narratives. And then somebody's going to ask you a question from their lens and their narrative that you won't normally see because your mind's working a very specific way as opposed to what they've seen and where they've done. And that's the cool part about it. I'm really liking being around what I call the young Thundercats, man. All these wholesalers coming in. I try and help them all I can. There's a lot of information on the internet. Not all of it's helpful. And trying to help them, find their way through those weeds to get to some success. But I had so many amazing mentors in my life. And one of my best mentors, he told me, whatever you've gotten, you owe the world times 2. So however much has been poured into you or helped you or been there for you when you need it, you owe the world at least 2 times that. And it's so important to, I had one person that I said something at a meeting to about, if this happens, do this. He's doing it right now. And it was a huge part of his pivot. And every year I do a market presentation. And I always talk about this. When we bought our company, when we bought our partner out, I'm like, why would I buy this if it doesn't make money in some points of the market? So I did I'm big in Excel and spreadsheets, and I dumped it into Excel. And that's when I realized that in 2007, when no one was making money, here's this little bubble of money. If you were looking at the data, you could figure out exactly where to put your time and your marketing dollars. And I've made the comment that when the market starts to correct, construction closeouts, if you're brokering, are the place to be because the builders give the house away to get out of these things. And he's actually doing it. And I'm shocked that he was listening. to be honest with you. So, because he was daydreaming the whole time, texting somebody. I remember watching him in the presentation, but he actually caught that, and he's actually doing it, which is awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. And I see every time I've been to the Southwest Florida REIA, it's like you see how many people are going, and there's people that are doing deals in there, and there's some of the big fish too that are coming. Maybe you'll have some new people, but there's people that are doing deals like all the time.
We've got 30 people that if we had a meeting about capturing cow manure for growing tomatoes would show up, but then we usually are meeting 70 to 90 at night, sometimes over 100. But yeah, there's every meetup or REIA group or whatever it is has their core that comes to everything. But then you've got, I call it the topic-based people. The right topic brings a lot of people in.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if anybody's in that Southwest Florida area, you got to go check them out. And we put that right there, the southwestfloridaria.com, because it's a meetup that you want to go to. You want to shake hands. You got to meet people like Jeff and Michael Lyons. Like you got to get out there and meet people. So Jeff, let me ask you this, and we'll dive in on some of the data and stuff like you talked about, getting into spreadsheets for the market and everything. What do you feel is the key to success in real estate investing?
The key to success, in my opinion, is knowing exactly what you're there to do. You really have to have a plan. I crack up when I see, particularly new wholesalers, they try and virtually wholesale across the country, 3 different asset classes, all these different types, and they really don't. You've got to have, like, I had in 2020, 3 of us formed a land flipping company. And right as the pandemic kicked in. So I was like, oh my God, but I had nothing else to do. So why not scale something out? So, but we had a very specific focus. Our land flipping company was Northport to Naples, no environmental. It had to have a power pole within 3 lots. We had a very specific, we would offer on everything else, but it was a very, very low offer. So, but we knew what we could sell. We had a good buyers list. We could assign stuff, simul close. The best deals we close on and flip ourselves. I think that entity probably did in a year and a half, 150 lots. But we knew exactly what we were there to do. As a flipper, you want to have a very specific, your sweet spot profile. Data should come into this, but if you don't have high-end quality craftsman type contractors, don't buy $1 million flips. If all you have are high-end quality $1 million contractors, you probably don't want to buy that entry-level house in Lehigh Acres, because you're going to probably over-improve it. It's going to look amazing, but you want to apply your tools and your skill set to the market that's going to reward it the most. And that's that knowing what you're there to do. Like we had our models had very specific custom maps. My acquisitions people would just type in an address, up would come what they could offer, all their due diligence points. It was very simple, but we knew exactly what we were there to do. And because of that, we could get an offer in front of people. And I think my favorite one, we had a 2-acre parcel in Alba that we closed on, and I think we made over 100%. And we closed within 4 business days. And I think we had it sold within 22 days closed after that. Wow. But that's part of knowing what you're there to do and understanding all the modalities of what you're there to do.
Yeah. And I'd add to this and say that, and great points to make, because you see this all the time. I'd say, even from the lens that I've seen with people that are doing real estate investing, how critical it is to build your team of experts. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to know everything. There's going to be a deal you've never seen before, or maybe you don't have the bandwidth for, or, it may not be your realm, but it's still a deal. It's so important to start building a collection of people in your Rolodex that you can go to for certain items. Or an example is lawyers. Like, there's got to be, every deal is going to have a different situation, whether it's contract drafting, or maybe there's a construction lien issue, or maybe a seller problem that's going to pop up where they don't, come to the table. Maybe there's one, but it's really good to have a real Rolodex of people that you can go to for certain situations. And I see over and over again where people don't build that out, right? They don't build out, what happens if you can't locate a seller, or you can't, or now you need a GC for a project. They don't have that, now they're stuck. So, and then that's why going to one of your meetups is a great, resource for where people can find different people that do this. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think that's a great point to why, you need to have these keys for success in real estate investing. And, you do a market update for people at the REIA yearly because you're really dialed in and understanding where the trends are in the market, and interest rates and demand and inventory. Data and demographics are one of the most important keys to being successful. Why is that?
Tell you a funny story. I had a guy I was talking to. He's one of my mentors, and he sat me down, and he had written a white paper. I sat with him in mid-07, and he gave me this white paper. And what this white paper basically said is I was out of business in what I was currently doing. And he's kind of that old school, like gives it to you hard, tough guy, As I'm sitting there, and it was really enlightening, and I'm seeing what he's talking about. But the way he's saying it, I'm like, I kind of want to punch him, but I think I'm going to take notes, but I may punch him. But I took a copy of his white paper with me. We had coffee for, I think, 4.5 hours that day.
Wow.
And we sat, he went over, we talked about it. I'd question this. He'd show me the data, email me some of the data sets. I was up all night. I completely recreated that white paper, and I realized this dude is right. And what I need to do is pivot. And I'll never forget this, because we had a REIA meeting, and I was doing consulting work for private equity firms at the time, helping them bid on a package of distressed notes. So I would take like the pricing, carry it forward 6 months, and kind of tell them, okay, this is where you might be. Ironically, at that point, you could get a foreclosure done in like 6 to 8 months. That is not how it turned out as the foreclosure filings piled up. There was 2.5-year foreclosures there. So, make friends with what you don't know too. But when I recreated that, and then I took what was happening with the data work I was doing at the time, I realized how much the market was going down. So we had a REIA meeting, and I basically put all the data out and said, guys, here's where we're going. If you've got some staying power and you don't need to lose money, don't lose money. If you don't have the staying power, it's better to lose $10 a day than bleed out and then lose $20. So, and a lot of the REIA, about 25% of the room didn't take it well, told me we were being negative, and I gave them the facts. It was purely demographic data. It was Excel charts with poly trend lines carrying forward stuff. It was, I dumbed it down, but it was fairly scientific why this is going to happen. And the ones that listened are still members and going. The ones that didn't listen, for the most part, some of them have come back. But, it's easy to, we love that human spirit. I was a Marine, dude. So I'm all about, we're going to die on this hill. We're going to get there. We're going to persevere through. But there are times that you have to pivot. And the data will tell you have to pivot, because, the joke is in the Marine Corps, we don't really all have to die on this hill, guys. We can just bomb it. But at the time when you're young and you don't know better. But in business, you don't have to die on hills. You can pivot out. You can go around it. You can circle back to it at a certain point. But you got to have the information, and the information's got to have enough conviction to help you make that decision. And that's why the data and demographics are so big, but you really have to approach them without whatever lens you have, because it's so easy if you're caught up in a couple flips. Oh, the market's going to get better. It's going to get better, because, inherently we're all in this because, we want to have a better life. We've got to, it takes courage to do this. Hey, I'm going to borrow a bunch of money, and I'm going to buy this beat up junk house, and I'm going to make it nice and get some money in the process. And it takes courage to do that, particularly if you start talking to anybody who either hasn't done it or did it once and didn't make it. They're going to tell you it's a terrible thing to do, but that's where the data is so key. But I'll never forget that meeting. There's still people that bring that meeting up. We got hate mail, like a lot of hate mail from people. About 20% of the club didn't want to come because I told them the truth. And a year later, all the emails were, you should have told me more. And, but that was purely data. Like recently, I just went back under the hood, revisited all those demographic charts, and kind of realized where we're going next. That's what we're going to talk about this month at our third Wednesday. It's very Florida centric, but really Sunbelt centric, retirement centric data. But the data really kind of sets you free once you know. You kind of know what should happen, but like ironically, we talk about data. In 2019, we were clearly starting to sputter into a correction. And then, the black swan, something out of nowhere that no one's seen coming, the pandemic. And then if there's no one on the planet that thought that when we made everybody stay in their house and bake banana bread and watch Tiger King for months on end, that it would take the real estate market and crank it up 30% in a year. No one. I was watching the pendings. That's when we had that Florida. It was called the Florida Land Team. There's 3 of us doing it. And I'm watching the pendings tick up. And I'm like, this is going to be okay. We need to get to work. Builders are going to be buying quickly because they're about to. Everybody stopped. The demand shot up because in Florida, you could actually, leave your house. I think my favorite, not to pick on the people from Michigan, I got family from Michigan, but I think you could put your boat in the water in Michigan, but you couldn't turn the motor on. So I'd have been like, catch me, guys. Hopefully your boat goes faster than mine because I'm turning the motor on, boys. But Florida, we had a different experience than a lot of the country, and we're really blessed by that, and we made money because of it. But that was the data. We really started scaling. I think it was the second week in May. All of a sudden, the pendings were like 40, 50, 60 a day. And I was like, something is happening here. And it happened enough to where it was definitely a trend. And we scaled into that and we did well. We honestly, all 3 of us, it made an impact on our lives financially because that's really why we do this. You don't do this because some people have that passion. My wife loves fixing up the old house and making it beautiful. I just like money. I like what money can help me do. You know what I mean? That's really why we do it. And data will help you do that. We all get lucky. We all have, happenstance that's positive that happens to us. But if you got the data points, you're a lot more likely to get lucky. If you got the wind to your back versus the wind to your face.
Yeah. And first of all, thank you for your service, Jeff, for serving in our country. And, one thing that you talked about too in the beginning, before we even hopped on the podcast, was how you're seeing a lot of fear in the market. And I'm sure that you're seeing that not just from just ground level and people talking, but there's probably data that even reflects that as well. Elaborate on that, because I know before the show, you were going to really go off about the fear in the market and where things are going. And I think it was a great quote that you said. So let's elaborate on that now that we're on the data point.
Well, the best quote in relation to that is from it's the Benjamin Graham book that inspired Warren Buffett. I cannot remember the name. The Intelligent Investor. And it's, be bold when others are fearful and fearful when others are bold. The best way I know to explain it, in 2006, early 06, people would stand in line in Cape Coral to camp out to get a number, to get a contract on a house that at that point sold for $330,000, rented for $2,000 a month. It's not a great rental. And then in 2009, the same people would absolutely not buy that house when it was $60,000 and it rented for $750 a month. And it absolutely cash flowed, and it was 1/3 of what it would cost to reproduce it. And that's just human nature. It's the mood. There's a book series called about socionomics, the Elliott Wave, which is a stock trading principle based on Fibonacci math. But he's got a whole subset of books about socionomics. I spent like $300 and I've read all of his books. And it's really a great read if you haven't gotten it, because you can look out in the herd. Right now, when I look on my Facebook feed, agents are now posting that the market's bad. Because, now they're trying to get their sellers to lower the price so they can sell. But that negative feedback loop starts, and all that does is make assets cheaper. So when the pendulum swings to pessimism, assets get cheaper. You as a real estate investor should start to perk up in your seat. We all would love to buy an oceanfront house for $8, and then never sell it. So in the right crash, it may actually happen. You remember I was trying to figure out a way to drain my pool and fill it full of oil during the pandemic when there was a negative like $100 and something a barrel for oil. I posted some meme on Facebook that I had a whole ship coming to the house. I got it for free plus, Everybody got a kick out of it. But, you look at, it's too bad we as a country didn't have the ability to store all that oil. Just think about how much, what an amazing thing that would have been. But that's part of that mood that, as an investor, like right now, I'm seeing a lot of people drop out of the game. A lot of real estate agents are dropping out of the game. And this is at the moment that I'm not saying throw your savings into one shot and go big, but now is when you start to get a little bold. You got a little less competition. I always laugh because I'll be competing. We do a lot of wholesaling, and I will be competing with somebody on a piece of land, and I'll go to leeclerk.org, put in these two LLCs. You'll see all the business I've done because I purposely, when I'm wholesaling, I did a lot of simultaneous closings. It's a little extra closing cost, but you actually put your name on a deed in public records, which is so critical because if, say, me and this guy Al that nobody's ever heard of are competing for this lot contract and Al's name isn't in public records, but my company's name is in there 100 times in 2 years, who do you think they're going to go with? But that's the beauty of where we are right now, because you're going to have a little less competition and people are getting fearful. You have a little better opportunity to actually get a deal right now. So, and when it's true blood in the streets is when you should be buying everything. I think my favorite meme was this millennial guy in the REIA shared that I was so selfish in the 9th grade when I was playing soccer when I should have been buying bank REOs. But he's too young at the time. But it's so critical to recognize that when everyone else is generally scared to do something, generally that means it's probably the time to do it. Now, with that said, there's notable examples of not. But when it comes to money and economics, when that pendulum swings to pessimism, and you can prove to yourself that there's a reason why it'll swing back to optimism someday, then go big. Don't be afraid, especially any type of an asset that will pay you to own it. We're buying mobile homes in Georgia, and I mean, the numbers are so much better than Southwest Florida on a cash-on-cash basis, but they're also probably not going to appreciate as much. You buy the right Sunbelt, coastal, either Florida, Texas, all those areas asset, you buy it right, it's going to appreciate significantly in one of these swings to where my rural Georgia mobile homes are just really like a big CD. Now, we did buy them, right? We're out banging on the phones and picking up the deals ourselves, and we've got a couple great agents bringing us deals. But you have, I'm not expecting those to appreciate much. I mean, inflation, maybe inflation plus.
Jeff, let me ask you this: why do you think people are dropping out of the game?
The easy money's off the table. So, and like I said, you need to be intelligent, but sometimes you do need to be stubborn. The easy money's off the table. Real estate's a cycle. This top third of the cycle attracts everybody. I can tell you in 2004 and 5, we had meetings in the REIA that were 300 people, 350 people. And we had these two guys that were insanely intelligent. They were software engineers, and they quit being software engineers and became real estate investors. And by mid-2007, they still came to the meetings, but they were software engineers with a couple rentals. When the market got hot, it got easy, it got sexy. They jumped in like everybody else. And I always say that, real estate, once you become a real estate person, the economy is done with you as a whole. You're a real estate person now, Al. I know you're an attorney, but you're really a real estate guy now. So the economy's kind of done with you other than real estate. So once you become a real estate person, I went to work for a bank for a little bit, and I realized I wasn't a banker. You know what I mean? And I kind of have a good skill set for a bank, but I just didn't enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. But that's so key to this is as the market starts to get resistance and you've got the right information and you're applying your effort in the right place, when everyone else is falling out, you're still doing well.
Yeah. And I definitely have seen that there's been some realtors that have stepped out of the game. And yeah, like you said, there's cycles. Like once in a while, investors will pump a lot of money into marketing, and all of a sudden they're back, and then they'll pull back. It all translates to the marketing side. Like if you pour money into the marketing, there's going to be deals and leads. You pull it back, and you still may get some, but maybe not the same amount. So I can see that. Jeff, you talk about a concept called financial repression. And I'm curious to hear about this concept about understanding financial repression and what it means for real estate investors. Let's elaborate on this concept and what it means.
Basically, it's a really simple concept, but if you get on the internet, oh my God, and you get about 9 points of view. But financial repression is when the government has to print its way out of debt. And when they do that, they devalue the dollar. Because, houses aren't really worth significantly more in nominal value since the 70s. It's just the dollar's worth less. And I'm not going to, and there's people that go into way big tangents on the Fed and all this weird stuff. But like I said, I only focus on the rate of change and real numbers that I can work with. But when you have a devaluating dollar, just look at if you paid market for a piece of property in 2019, by 2022, you look pretty good. Now, part of that was fueled by we printed trillions of dollars, which pumped the economy up and got inflation going. So imagine if you buy a sensibly leveraged asset, and I'm talking like 65, 70% max. Because, every real estate is still cyclical by design, or my joke, the experiment just works better this way. So whoever designed this just enjoys it more to have it be cyclical. But you're going to have your high points like 2022, like same thing. When I talked about 2005, you had houses renting for $2,100 a month. 2008, that house was renting for $750, $795. So if you're going to be sensibly leveraged, you got to be able to stack enough cash in here to survive the bottom. And it's usually a few years of really bad rents in some of these cycles. So if you have sensibly leveraged real estate, and the fact that, we're like $29 trillion in debt, $30 trillion in debt, something like that, that at some point they're going to print their way out of this. So the beauty is, as they keep printing money, they're basically devaluating the dollar, which is devaluating your mortgage. Now, you're still going to have cycles. It's some days it'll be worth more, some days it'll be worth less. But particularly if it cash flows, like we've got properties in Georgia that are unlevered that are paying 12% cash on cash. That's pretty good. So why would you ever? Part of me is wondering why I don't lever them up a little bit and buy a whole bunch more. But you just gotta have enough leverage to scale, but not enough leverage to be the anchor around your neck in a cycle. But the long term of them printing money, the long term play, all it does is make hard assets more expensive. Look at cars. Look at boats, everything. I took my nieces out on a boat. I got one of my nieces in town. She goes to the University of Charleston. She got her college roommates. I took them out to Sanibel, and they could not believe what boats cost. When I showed them all the boats in front of us, I'm like, girls, that's $30 million worth of boats that everybody's, having a cocktail on right now. And they couldn't believe, because they just don't know how much they cost. But on a long enough timeline, barring some sort of amazing crash or some sort of a reset in the monetary system, which the banks don't really like change. So it's financial repression. Google it. Gronk on Twitter does a really good job of explaining it. So does ChatGPT. So you can go in there and then just keep asking it questions, and it'll answer your question. It's not 100% right, but it'll give you the framework.
Yeah. And you brought up a great point that we were talking about off air, which was the use of AI for real estate investors and real estate professionals, and what you've seen on the ground level with ChatGPT or Grok. Like, what have you seen have been the benefits? Because you're ground level, like you're on the local level, and you're using it and leveraging it. What have you seen with AI being the next wave for investors and real estate people?
I got people all over Georgia sending me deals, and I've got some data sources that are up there that I use for here too. But I also value boots on the ground more than anything. And like on my ChatGPT, I do the 20 a month. It's probably one of the better investments I've ever made. And a joke is it can spell and I can't. So ChatGPT's already got one up on me right there, and its punctuation's pretty on. And but like I've got there's a bunch of plugins for rental and real estate where you can go, how much give me the last 10 houses in the agents that rented houses in Moultrie, Georgia. Boom, up it comes. You Google them, call them, talk to them. It's really more of a kind of a force multiplier. It's a way to leverage and just get answers faster. We used to hire VAs to do this stuff. And essentially, ChatGPT is the best VA I've ever had for research. I'm not, it's not, when ChatGPT can cold call, they're going to get a lot of money from me. So they're going to get all my money probably, but we're going to do just fine. It'll be okay.
Yeah. Can't imagine that day, but that would be crazy.
It'll be awesome.
Maybe it's coming. Who knows? Or even using it for direct mail. I'm sure there's people that are already doing that where they're customizing templates for it and using it for marketing purposes. So, but at least you've seen a use for it, and you can probably see where it's going and where it's headed for people in the local markets. Well, Jeff, this has been awesome. I love hearing this different side and different perspective of what you're seeing, what you're doing, and you sound like you're the data guy, you're the market analysis guy when it comes to this. So, and you've seen the different cycles, so it's a really interesting perspective. Jeff, I have a few questions that I do towards the end of my show. That's signature questions, and you've been in this long enough to see the pros and cons of partnerships and what that can mean for some investors. What are your thoughts on partnerships, the good, the bad, and the ugly?
The good, especially in the beginning, you can bring various talents in to attack whatever the problem is you're attacking that you're going to make money to do. That is huge. I've learned in a partnership, the number one in underwrite for me for a partner is that if we win, can they handle the win? Because there are people that when success hits them, they weren't ready for it. We all know people that have had success and it's actually turned out to not be the best thing for them. So me and partnerships, what do they bring to the table? Is this equitable? Am I going to be doing, if there's 5 of us, am I going to do 85% of the work and get 20% of the profit? I don't want to do that. And then more importantly, if we all start making a lot of money, is anybody here going to lose their mind? And you don't really know until you've been in one that blew up. But when you've been in one that blew up, there's usually when you start making a lot of money, the evils kind of come out. So that's really an underwrite I do is, how are they going to handle it if we win? Can this person handle a win? I've brought people into partnerships because I wanted them. I'm like, this guy's smart. He's just never had a win. He's never really had anything truly work out. And when we won, I was like, I don't think he was ready for this win. Yeah. So, because the key is when you do something that you're doing well and making money, you do that and scale as fast and hard as you can until it doesn't work. And the minute it doesn't work, pivot, pull the plug. And that's a problem with partnerships too, because not everybody will see the same pivot. So partnerships are great. It's important to have them, especially in the beginning, because one thing we preach at the REIA, you have 4 basic tools. You've got your time, you've got your knowledge, you've got capital, and you got credit. Okay, those 4 things. And if you don't have one of those 4, go find somebody that's got it and work it out. But if all you're bringing is credit, and I'm doing everything else, then maybe it's not a 50-50. This isn't going to work long term. Somebody's going to get dissatisfied. So, but yeah, partnerships are great if you map them out, if you put them in writing, and you kind of stress test everybody involved. And I don't mean like personally stress test them, but will they, if they win, can they handle this? Just basic stuff, because it's a very in-depth relationship. You share bank accounts and you share ideas, and it's really easy when everybody beats a bongo drum and sings Kumbaya when you're making money. But, when you get served with papers for a lawsuit, then you find out who's really on the team or not. So, it's important. Most people will start as partners always. It's pretty rare not to, but and the goal is at some point you are doing your own deals, and there's still times you partner up. I can tell you at the foreclosure steps back in the day, we all kind of had the same number. And at some point it'd be like, dude, stop bidding. We'll just do the deal together. Stop. I'm going to run you up. You're going to run me up. Let's just partner up. I'll put in half, you put in. And there were so many partnerships back when it was at the foreclosure steps, just because it was nobody's going to make money if we don't partner up, kind of thing. But they're huge. Just make sure you know what you're getting into. You want to have a pretty clear definition. More importantly, how you would break it up if it doesn't work. You're a lawyer. I don't have to explain to you these concepts.
Yeah.
But the personal underwrite is huge. What do they bring to the table? You're going to coexist with this person a fair amount. You're going to talk to them a lot. If it's somebody you don't get along with just because you have complementing talents, it may not be the best idea.
Yeah, and I will say that I've seen a lot of people go through the different partnerships and then they eventually dissolve, or they start off that way and they break up and they split up, and some are good terms and some are not, but doing your due diligence in finding a partner, and you don't want to find the same you either, right? Like if I'm trying to partner with somebody on something, I'm trying to find somebody that's gonna have the opposite of what I can do, because they're going to fill in the gap of things that I can't do that they can do. Right. And it's hard to find that, but you got to use your vetting process and actually be able to walk through that. But you've seen a lot of this. So there's probably I feel like there's a lot more probably bad than good.
No, there's a lot of good. There was, like, back when I talked about the HUD list, there was a group in town called Investors Network, and I think for every deal I did, they did 10. And it was 4 or 5 of the most talented people that I knew, and they all had a specific niche, and they absolutely crushed it. Every one of them's wealthy, and they're all still friends.
Okay.
At some point, it ran its course, and then they said, you know what, we're going to do different things. But, they did it at the time. I was feeling kind of successful until I got on public records and seen their deed counts and seen my deed counts and realized I was a bit of an irritation to them. I wasn't really even a competitor, to be honest. And it kind of inspired me because I got to know them all, and I'm still friends with some of them, because your competitors don't have to be your adversaries. That's huge in this business. It's so easy to want to paint everybody you compete with as an adversary. Some people even in their mind kind of frame them as an enemy. And I've done deals with people that are my competitors all the time. There's no reason. That's the thing too with the partnerships. Relationships should always have more value than money. I value a good relationship over $1 every time, because a good relationship will bring you dollars for years. And that's where, if you got one person that all they care about is dollars, and they don't value relationships, that's probably not the best partner.
And it's not on the partnership side, but what you just said about valuing relationships over the deal, right? I can cite an example today where that happened, where there was a lot of scrambling over a potential deal, and then it just blew up, and they were just like, let's compensate you for the time. And I'm thinking, this relationship is something that's going to bear fruit over and over and over, and I'm ahead of that curve, right? I see exactly what you're seeing in that sense. So, you really need to pay attention to the relationship side of it. Like you're saying, like there's got to be, there's that over the money side. Because it's like you said in the beginning, as soon as money hits the table, that's when everybody changes. So you got to make sure you're doing the right thing. Jeff, what are some good books that you would recommend to people when either, maybe for business advice or real estate or just personal development? What have been some of the hot books that you've read that you would just right away recommend?
As far as probably my favorite author, it had nothing to do with real estate. It's Nicholas Talib Tassim. You got to read him in the order. He's got one book called Fooled by Randomness that it changed how I think. And then he's got The Black Swan, which is just a drill down of that concept, but what it brings to light is huge. After that, he's got Anti-Fragile, which is pretty good too. That's my goal in life, is to be anti-fragile. After that, he keeps drilling down, and it gets so obtuse that it's like arcane to me anymore. I love him. He's brutally sarcastic, funny, scientific human being. On Twitter, I don't agree with a lot of what he posts from a lot of his lenses, but I love and respect his work. If you're trying to get into investing and to truly understand what makes money, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham, it is the book that inspired Warren Buffett. And there's The Rich Dad, The Poor Dad. There's all those books. There's so many great books out there in real estate. But for me, that Nicholas Talib Tassim series really brought it to light. And if you want a book that will help you to recognize that pendulum, because it's really important to recognize that with this is becoming a mania. At some point, things turn from a boom to a mania, and that's when things go badly. There's a book called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. It was written by Charles Mackay in the late 1700s. And it details like the Salem witch trials, the Mississippi Trading Company, the South Seas Trading Company, the tulip manias. And ironically, I was reading that in the late 07 as we're coming out of a mania in real estate in America. And it was amazing the amount of commonalities that the tulip bulbs had with lots in Cape Coral. There's certain things that just happen. Those books were huge. I mean, as far as real estate, there's so many great books out there. It's hard to, and you really want to read about current people that are doing what you want to do. You want to get your lens right. You want to think right. You want to approach business right. But if you're into rehabbing houses, don't spend your day reading about strip malls. If you're into strip malls, don't spend your day reading about raw land. Find people that are doing it and they're writing about it. That's where Substack is so huge. There's Substack, there's some YouTube. I get so much, I keep calling it Twitter, but I guess it's X now. I've made lists of various real estate people. And every day, there's one guy, Lance Lambert. I'm sure you've heard of him, Resi Club.
Yeah, I think it sounds familiar.
Yeah, great data work. I actually subscribe to his I'm a subscriber of his, and I can do the data, but he does such a good job, and honestly don't think he has a lens to it. There's people on YouTube that have called 36 crashes in the last 2 years. And then there's people on YouTube that have never seen a crash since 1970. You know what I mean? So everybody has their biases. I like people that just look at the data and talk about the data, because that's how I'm going to make money, is, being in the right direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, books, those Nicholas Talib Tassim books, that Fooled by Randomness will change how you think.
Hey, that was great. Great answer. A lot of books. There's a lot of books for people to tune into. And The Intelligent Investor, another book that
is one of the driest, boringest reads you will ever have. Get through it. I mean, I can read a 300-page book in 2 hours. So that's one of my, everybody has a couple superpowers in life, information, and I can speed read, or what I do. And it took me a little bit to read that book. It's kind of dry. It's like what most stock CFAs read, stuff like that. But if you apply a lot of the principles in it, I'm telling you, there are some amazing real estate principles, but especially the pendulum, pessimism to optimism. That concept right there is worth the read.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure everybody will be checking that out. Jeff, final question. Essential skills investors need to have in this market today. What are some of the skills that investors need to build on right now to ensure 2025 and beyond that they are prepared to do deals, scale their business, or maybe it's business skills? What are you seeing right now?
Well, we're in an unclear market. So some markets like Connecticut and stuff's doing pretty good. Punta Gorda, Florida, they're kind of leading the nation right now with year-over-year price reductions. Information, but more importantly, focusing on the rate of change. How is it changing as compared to what? And then really and truly, it's about being resilient. You got to be grounded. It's easy in times like this to get frustrated. But I can tell you, the Southwest Florida REIA, we had the only functioning foreclosure database when the market blew up. So I was the media darling. At one point, I was on Bloomberg TV. It was kind of hilarious because I'm kind of in a virtual green room. And the lady asked me my background, and I didn't really want to be there because I didn't feel like I should be there. And I guess maybe I should have believed in myself a little more. But I'm like, she asked me what my background was. And I was like, well, I carried a machine gun in the Marine Corps. And then my first job is I worked at the Waffle House. And she started laughing. She's like, we're just not going to talk about your background then. But, my information was great. My data was great. But we had information that no one else had, and we're actually applying it. And because I had that information, the next thing you know, I'm the analyst for a private equity firm, and I met some really wealthy people, and I learned so much in that venture about how wealthy people invest their time and money. And if there ain't blood in the streets, they don't do it. They'll just sit on their cash. And but in this, you get your information, make sure it's accurate, okay? Because a lot of what you see on socials, I call it, you're getting your science from a philosopher. Make sure it's actually good data, vet the data, and then figure out how to use it to make money. And the key to real estate investing in times like this, the most important, I spend 80% of my underwrite on a deal underwriting the downside of a deal. I only spend about 20% on the top, because if I know I don't get pinched, I know I'm going to make money. So, and it's the things you can't know everything. So you kind of got to make friends with that.
Mm-hmm.
But in these, you need the deals you don't do will enable you to do the deals you should. And the deals you should in down markets are amazing, and then more importantly, the way to wealth is by owning assets. The way to wealth, when real estate gets cheap, you should be keeping it. I always laugh. We always flip the best deals, and those are the deals we should keep. You bought it so cheap, it's always going to cash flow.
Yeah.
So, but times like this, you need to have some courage to stay in the game. But with good information, you can come out the other side the person you want to be, really, truly. But it's a long-winded, multifaceted answer. But I mean, there's no one answer to it. But I really think right now it's all about not making a mistake. That's why I spend so much time on the downside. Because in this market, if you make a mistake, if you made a mistake in 2021, market saved you in 8 months. Mm-hmm. If you make a mistake now while it's going down, there's nothing to save you. You're that's my new favorite term, accidental landlord. I don't know if you've heard that yet or not. No. Yeah, it's the new term everybody talks about. We have one of the guys in the REIA. He had 3 flips that were going. He got out of 2, made some money, refied 1, going to keep it as a rental, which is still good. You own something. But, he had it on the market for a bit. He's with that. I was like, congratulations, you can put accidental landlord on your LinkedIn now. So, but again, pivoting, don't bleed out, pivot, figure out a way to get out of stuff.
Yeah. Well, all great answers. And you've seen a lot, and that you've had the experience behind it. So there's
I've made every mistake a human being can make in this game. So, and then some.
And then you learn from others' mistakes too.
Yeah.
So there's another way to look at it. And I'm sure if there's somebody's making a mistake, you don't want to make what they're making. And so you learn as you go. Just be wise. Well, Jeff, all of this has been great. This has been so much fun to really actually sit down, because I always see at the REIA meetings, but we're always in passing. Everybody's talking. Yeah. I actually get to sit with you and talk about this stuff. And it's always a really different experience for me on my end. So I've really enjoyed having you and talking to you.
I want to give you a plug real quick. There are 78 million baby boomers born. Probates are about to be the biggest thing on the planet in the next couple of years. So make sure Al likes you and values the relationship. That's what I'll say.
And I agree. I mean, I think I was talking about this, 2-3 years ago at the first one that I spoke at, talking about the silver tsunami. And I think, for a lot of people, probably half the people that were there went over their heads, or they just were, they couldn't believe it. Right. But now, you're seeing, it's no, this is actually real.
Well, we have a birth rate chart that we use. It tracks 62-year-olds, and it really, it mirrors our sales counts perfectly. And the scariest moment I've had in a long time, I'm Gen X, is when I realized in 2027 or 2028, we've been calling it the boomer birth rate chart. It becomes the Gen X birth rate chart. The joke is I didn't sleep that night thinking about it. So, it's part of the pivot too, I guess. But yeah, no, what you do is about to be mission critical. I think probate will be where all the deals are, particularly in the Sunbelt states, in a couple of years.
Yeah. And Florida for sure. It's not going anywhere, and it's only going to keep increasing. So I can't wait to hear more about the data that you find on that. That's going to be really intriguing when I see you in July, because that's going to be.
We should do this again, though. I've got some charts I'm coming out with that I'd love to just show you and see what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be great. I think that having data and market updates are a fantastic thing for the show. I mean, that's everything. So definitely we'll take you up on that, Jeff. But Jeff, this has been so fun. Thank you for taking the time to do this. And one last time, plug the REIA, just so everybody can make sure that they get tuned into it.
Just go to SWFL REIA.com. We've been meeting since November of 2003. So been pretty much a lifetime. We've got the REIA's older than some of its members. So.
Well, every time I go, it's a great time, great meetup, great people, and they really know how to liven it up and bring in great people all the time. So, Jeff, as I do at the end of my show, I do a segment called Final Words, Final Thoughts. Any lasting impressions for the guests out there and the people that are watching? Final words, final thoughts. Jeff Tumbarello.
It is not what the market does. It's what you do that will decide whether you succeed or not.
Boom.
That's it. Drop the mic.
Boom, drop the mic. We are out, everybody. Jeff, thank you so much. And I'll be seeing you soon at the Southwest Florida REIA. Keep doing the amazing work you guys are doing out there and keep getting those deals and keep doing the analysis on the data.
Can I plug something real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I need acquisition people. I forgot to bring that up to you. If you would like to get involved in this game, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you and see if it's a fit.
Acquisition people. Perfect. There you go. Well, you got Jeff's contact. You got his email, the website, and the YouTube channel. Check everything out. Reach out to Jeff. He's a wealth of knowledge in this game, and he'll talk to you about all this stuff. So check him out. Check out the Southwest Florida REIA. And Jeff, I will be seeing you soon, my friend.
Looking forward to it.
Likewise. You take care.
Bye.
All right, everybody, you heard it from Jeff Tumbarello himself. Lots to go through on that episode with data, the market, what you need to know for the keys for real estate investing and AI for real estate investing. There's so much that we have on these episodes, and Jeff is another great example of the different things that you need to know. And he went through so many books, too, that could be real game changers for people and the tips and essential skills that investors should have. So much. Go back, check it out. And one thing I will say, you got to check out their Southwest Florida REIA. There's different REIAs throughout the Florida area. And I've been there twice already. And each time I've gone, great crowd, great people. Go check them out. And it's always great to be a part of your community. It's all about community. So check out the episode and scan the QR code at the top of the screen right there. You're going to get all of our content, social media, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, all that stuff out there. It's been another amazing night on the Al Nicoletti Show. Thank you all for tuning in. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.